Hello, I'm Ellen Cornett of LNK Creative, and today I'm coming to you in this second of the Bioelectric Shield blogcast videos to talk about some insights that we're getting from two quizzes that we run, and we've been running them since 2016. I'm going to focus today on the electromagnetic field protection quiz. Electromagnetic field is what we're talking about when you hear EMF. And we're going to focus especially on this 55-year-old plus urban and suburban exodus and what it means for EMF protection. So thousands interviewed over these past 6 years have demonstrated a consistent need for EMF energy protection. They come to the Bioelectric Shield website, 25,000 people and counting, many more than that by now, have taken these quizzes, and then they get a recommended shield level as a result. And this is typically effective for many years to come, allowing people of all ages to live more peacefully and productively. In our previous quiz blogcast, I described trends in EMF exposure and energy sensitivity that we've been collecting for the duration of these quizzes. And the reason it only went to 2021 is that that's the data I reported on. We are still continuing and counting. And as we continue to track results over time, we're getting a unique window into the electromagnetic habits, practices, and needs of both these younger adults, ages 21 to 54, and the needs of those over age 55. The quizzes cover all ages. You don't have to be 21 to take the quiz. I'm just focusing in on these age groups today so that we can see what the trends are. In Q1 of 2022, we had a substantial number of older adults actually pouring into these two quizzes, and this signals an increased interest among this age group. So that's what we're focusing on today. And what's really interesting to me is that the movie Nomad Land that you may have seen, and all kinds of articles and stories and posts and everything running around out there, is that we're all talking about an emergence of this exodus of baby boomers away from urban or suburban lifestyles. They're moving to mountaintops, they're going out in their caravans, in their RVs, and they are living the good life. So the influx that we had in Q1 of 2022 of 55-year-old plus quiz takers gives us an even better way to look at this trend and look at the age-related EMF exposure. So since we began doing these quizzes, we've definitely been tracking the quiz scores, which show the amount of EMF exposure that an individual has. And we've been seeing those quiz scores kind of inch their way up. Usually everyone is at least at a moderate level living in our modern day society. But we've noticed more and more trending towards these very high scores. And a high score is when you score in the 67% of the total score range or higher. So we've seen those creep up. Now, what we're looking at here in this chart is the age breakdown of the current level of EMF score or exposure. And on that top bar, you'll see the youngest group actually has higher scores than the oldest group at the bottom. And what we've noticed is that older adults really are tending to have slightly lower exposure scores. There are fewer of them are in that high range. The higher exposure scores for younger adults are correlated with living in more urban areas, and suburbs also are included in that, and less regulation of their behavior around electronics. So when this happens, when you are exposed to EMF, you tend to have a lot of symptoms and sort of consequences that you may not even really think about. So in these quizzes, we are asking, have you noticed any of these things? And this is just a general overview of some of the things that are noticed most often. And then the 3 different colors are mild, moderate, or severe. So that first one is mysterious symptoms in it's things that are hard to explain or that haven't really been diagnosed, or that, you kind of keep noticing, and they're sort of persistent. And that is the most commonly noted effect. And it is indeed, these are correlated with the higher exposure scores and the other behaviors and things that we've been measuring. So there is some connection to EMF exposure with mysterious symptoms, and then to a lesser degree, chronic fatigue syndrome, and then ADD and ADHD, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. And then the other things that we've been trying to keep track of are fibromyalgia and autism spectrum disorder, which tends to be more reported with parents who are taking these quizzes for their children. So that's not going to be as frequent in this adult-only analysis that I'm doing for you today. So the good news is that the severity and incidence of these things that people are reporting decrease as the EMF scores are affected, mitigated, lowered, brought down. And so this is really good news for us, because while we expect symptoms to increase with aging, we are really finding that these older groups, the ages 55 plus, do not report as high a rate of chronic fatigue syndrome or focusing issues as younger age groups. Now, some of that, if you go out and look at data for the entire population, you'll see, whether these trends are connected or not. But in our data set, it is very clear that there is a correlation. Let's see if I can there we go. So there are 2 reasons that people's scores go up or down. The first is location, whether they're living in an area that has a lot of electromagnetic field activity. And the second is the things that we can do about mitigating that exposure. Those are the 2 factors lining up with these scores that we've been measuring. And our research definitely seems to confirm the age-related trend away from urban living. So remember, we saw lower scores in this older group. We also see that fewer of them are living in the urban areas, that 15% compared to a quarter or over a quarter of the younger age groups. And in the last period of 2021, this was even a little bit more pronounced. So this is definitely a pattern that we're keeping an eye on. There are more and more of them shifting to that green, which is the rural or smaller town areas. And there were a few people that actually said something else, but it ended up translating to small town or rural. So that number is even maybe a little bit higher. Behavior-wise, the second factor, these people are keeping their EMF exposure levels lower by spending less time on screens and carrying the phone on their person, which is known as proximity, for fewer hours each day. A few more are also turning off Wi-Fi at night. So instead of leaving it on 24/7, you can set a timer and it can turn off when you're sleeping. And they are also flying less. When you're flying, especially overseas, you're exposed to a lot of EMF as well. So these people are not taking a lot of business flights and so on, and they're not necessarily going overseas every couple of weeks. So this is good news for all of us, because we can go about our busy lives and be like a boomer, at least in this sense, with behaviors and gentle interventions that actually improve our quality of life. Yay, us. So EMF radiation protection, how your life can improve, you can head over to the Bioelectric Shield website, which is www.bioelectricshield.com. bioelectricshield.com, and you can learn a lot more about all of this. This is a content-rich site. It has so much interesting information. You can search for whatever you want to learn about. And there's a recent blog post, not the one I talked about in the first video, but another blog post that's called Electrosmog, Learn How to Protect Yourself. And you can learn a lot from there. And then also, while you're on the site, take the EMF quiz to find out how significant your own exposure is and what you can do about it. Thank you very much for talking to me today. I am looking forward to seeing you in the next blogcast video. This is Ellen Cornett, LNK Creative.